So the next step was to go through and put pentarol on all of the joins in the screw holes that I made in the trailer. And then after that, I did all of the waterproofing with this stuff I got recommended from a guy at Bunnings. He didn't seem all that sure about it, but I went with it anyway.
60% of the time, it works every time.
So it turned out pretty good and I was happy with the result. Now the next step was to go and measure out the center of the trailer. So this sheet is right in the middle. Then flip over the sheet and put the waterproofing side down, obviously. Then I decided it was best to put all the screw holes in first, so pre-drill everything, and then add the screws later. I did go back and back these screws out actually after a comment I had on a TikTok I did. I needed to put in some silicone in those holes, so I did that. Then it was time to move on to the sides and start filling in these side pieces. I'm actually just hammering that down to mark out the bolts that are underneath. You can see it's just made a little circle. Good little template for me to go back and drill it out a bit bigger so it fits on there nice and snug. And doing it in around the wheels here was kind of tricky, but I got the hang of it, and it ended up alright in the end. They fit pretty well. So these also needed some waterproofing underneath, so I went through and waterproofed all the bottom of that, and also all along the edge of the sheet I'd already screwed in. Then silicone all along the edge to ensure no water comes up through that, and push it all together, both pieces, or all three pieces, and then attach those to the trailer as well. So these were all pre-drilled as well, and I did do the silicone in these holes too later on. Screwing those all down nice and tight, and did that for both sides. You didn't see that here, but I did both sides and sealed it all up just like this with the silicone down the edges as well. So for the next side, the missus even came to help and was doing some waterproofing. She did a pretty good job actually in filling in all of the gaps and covering the whole sheet. Wasn't a bad job. She needed a soup break though.
Can I have some soup, please?
And overall, pretty good job.
Floor is all in, everything is waterproofed, nailed down tight.
This is sealed tight.
But do I fit? I should, I measured it.
No, it's too tight, we're not gonna fit.
Yes, this is gonna be comfy.
Yeah, sure.
Needs a mattress.
Now the next step was to go and cut all of the pieces that I needed to fill in these boxes over the wheels, or the wheel wells. So I'm using the marine ply here to build the boxes as well. Keep everything nice and watertight as possible. I am going to fiberglass the inside of this box, so that's the completed marine ply portion. I just needed to take the clamps off and put in these temporary little blocks to hold it, while I put on the smaller or thinner plywood that goes on the inside. I just had to plane that down slightly, but this is the thinner plywood. I'm just marking that out to build the inside of the box. It was kind of tricky. It's like building a box within a box, so I was sort of just measuring everything and cutting everything as I went, and putting it all together that way. So it worked out pretty good, and you can see here just marking out some more bits. They all fit pretty well. Putting a whole heap of glue here.
Whoa, that's enough.
Yep, it's enough. It seems to be enough, but it's just to hold it as tight as possible, because I'm going to screw it down as well, as you just saw there. And I was putting these pieces all on the inside as well. It's kind of awkward to get in around the wheel there, but I didn't really want to take it off.
You're lazy and you're stupid.
So I just continued gluing those pieces on and fitting them as close as possible, so that when I fiberglass it, there's not as many gaps to fill in. And last piece going on there, then I've screwed all that down, put the lid on, attached the lid, and that's the finished product. Looks pretty good. Had to plane it down, and then I've just realised going against the plywood, oh, that didn't work real well. Alright, time to glass these boxes. Came out kind of dirty.
Oh God, don't be so childish.
I want to glass the inside of the entire box, so it's waterproof, obviously from the wheel well. Lots of water.
Duh.
Glassing all the inside, around the edges, and over this top bit that's going to be exposed to the weather and elements and tornadoes and cyclones and all sorts of gear.
Relax!
No, getting carried away now. So there's three things that I've learned today. Fiberglassing is not easy. I'm very bad at it, and dressing like this makes the neighbours think you're up to no good. First step was to cut out all the fiberglass I needed for the boxes. Then I thought I'd try this 5-minute hack to pour out the resin with the tape, but yeah, you can see the result.
That sucked.
Then I tried to apply the fiberglass, and if you know anything about fiberglassing, get ready for the clown show. I tried to stick down all the fiberglass, especially around the edges, but absolutely nothing worked. I tried to use my hands even.
Oh, come on, man. That's not gonna work.
It wasn't a total disaster. Even after it cured, you can see that the result wasn't too bad, except for these little bits along the top here, which were horrendous. I went back and grinded all of that off and gave both of the boxes a really good sanding all over, inside and out. Then it was time to move on to doing the peel ply, so I just went through and cut out all the pieces that I would need and the right size. This was so much easier than the other fiberglassing method. Just wet down all the surfaces with a good amount of resin and then just lay the piece on top and then roll it out. Very, very simple and easy to work with. And everything was going really, really well for this whole process. I was very, very happy with how it was going. And then I decided to lay down one sheet along the outside edge. You can see here I'm just about to do it. I pull one strand and this happens. What the f***? Anyway, I managed to fix it and correct it and move on.
That was really close.
After it cured, I was super happy with the result. You can see it looked really nice. And it was just a matter now of going through and peeling off all of the peel ply. Super satisfying to do this. It just comes straight off and there's a nice smooth surface underneath. A bit of ASMR for people who want to hear what it sounds like.
Okay, that was nice.
Time to start framing this thing in. I'm going to be using aluminium framing, just like this. And this is cool because it's nice and lightweight, but super strong as well once it's all screwed together.
You sure about that, Carl?
So I just went through and started cutting all of the posts that I had here to length, and then measuring out the place where I wanted the pitch of the roof to begin going up. And then I had to cut out the sides so that it could actually bend. Then I laid them all down flat, as you see here, and pushed them in together.
Bending to your strength.
Then I clamped everything down to the trailer to try and keep everything as square as I possibly could while I cut things out and joined things together. So just measuring up, seeing things that are square, making sure things are square, and using my drill, my trusty D, as I call her, D for D-Walt. Sorry, terrible joke. Anyway, putting the studs in here and screwing those all down, making sure that it's all at the right distance and as square as it possibly can be throughout the process of joining it.
I've raised the wall. Well, kinda. It's just sitting there against my tent, but you can kind of see what it's going to look like. I wanted to be able to stand up in this camper, but can I stand in it? All right, full head clearance. You can see I can stand up in here pretty easily. On the outside of this will be the cool room panels. They'll sit down there on the little brackets. 1200 up to the corner here, another 1200 to the peak. It's coming together.
Now that I had the general shape of the frame and it was as square as I possibly could get it, I decided that it was time to start bracing them up. So I'm using these smaller bracings to begin with, just to make sure that this bottom frame is nice and square while I build the next one on top and measure it out. Then I moved that bottom one, and as you can see here, I'm starting to put in the studs for the other frame, which will actually form the doorway. So just marking those out and cutting them all to length. And they also need to be cut at the top at an angle so that they'll fit into the frame as well. The actual frame itself kind of needs to be bent out a little bit as well. With these steel frames, you've got to kind of keep everything flush, so you need to bend them a little bit just so it makes it work properly. Measuring out the doorway, making sure it's all sweet before I screw it all in together, and measuring. Measure twice, cut once, measure twice before you join. That's what I was always told as a carpentry apprentice. Anyway, finishing out the framing here with these last few, what do you call them? Noggins. I think they're called noggins. And then also the bracing there as well. So it looks good.
Oh yes, I have a door.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
Very nice.
King in the castle, king in the castle.
So before I finished up this frame and braced it up, I wanted to make sure that the window fit in there correctly. So I'm actually placing that in there to get the right dimensions. It all fit good, so I braced that up with the last few bracings that I needed to put in. Then I use this block to put in the middle, and it won't stay there though.
It's only temporary.
It's just to hold the bracing while I put the walls up here, drill one in at the top, clamp it at the bottom, try and get it as square as possible for putting the screws in the floor. Then I'll put the next one in a little bit. I actually stepped it in a little bit because outside is going to be a little step there with eaves over the top, and came up pretty good. Looks alright. Time to remove the wheel and put on the sides. Pumped about this. This was a great step. Put that side on and clamped it in and marked out where the wheel well will go. I thought this was probably the best way to get an accurate measurement before cutting it out. So I actually used the wheel well itself as a template to trace it out, and that worked really well. I wasn't sure the saw would go through this material that well, but it slid on through like Jim in an apple pie.
Huh? Jim?
Then it was time to flip it over and complete the cut from the saw on the other side, and disaster. This whole thing felt like it was going in slow motion. Yeah, as you can see, less than impressed with that. But it was very little damage, just one corner, and I managed to cut it all out and fit it to the trailer. Fit perfectly, so I was very happy with that. It looks nice. Then it was time to fit the wheel box on the other side. Little tap, tap, tap.
Just tap it in.
Little tap for good luck. And fit on the other wall. And this one fit pretty well as well. Happy with that. And you can see here the sheets are designed to sit one on top of each other, not like on an angle. So I had to remove one side so it fit better, and you can see that channel fits in there nicely. So it was time to begin fitting the other side. So I needed to install the wheel well on that side, pushing that down with some silicone, then using these channels here to put all along the side so there's no gaps at all. And you can see that turned out pretty good. Then the supervisor arrived.
Can I help you? Are you the supervisor here?
That was handy because I got some help with putting the other side on. Just put some silicone all over the top of this and all along the side for the next sheet. And the supervisor helped me put that on with her knee skills.
Got mad skills.
Now this is tunnel core, and I'm going to use this for the front wall. So I decided to put it up and mark it out while the roof is off to make it much easier. I've seen an architect use this before in one of his builds.
But you're not one of them.
Awesome to see the roof sheets go up, and I'm putting those down and inserting them into the channel and then just bending it down. So what do you think of my tiny house on wheels now?
Look cool now.
It's actually starting to take shape now, and you can see this last panel going up, and stay tuned for plenty more videos.